our next speaker on board, Professor Dr. Erdogan Ekiz, all the way from African continent, from Morocco. Professor Dr. Erdogan Ekiz is an associate professor, School of Hospitality, Business and Management, Mohammed VI Polytechnic University, Morocco. And Dr. Erdogan will speaking on the topic of tourist behavior during and after COVID-19, suggestion to the tourism and hospitality industry. It is my immense pleasure to have you on board. I would like to take the opportunity to speak a few words on Dr. Erdogan. Dr. Erdogan Ekiz is a founding dean of the School of Hospitality, Business and Management at Mohammed VI Polytechnic University. Until very recently, he was an associate professor at King Abdulaziz University, Faculty of Tourism, Jeddah, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where he served as a director of both postgraduate studies and international relations and agreements unit. He served as a launching head of travel and tourism department. He served also as acting director of studies of Cardiff Metropolitan University, London, School of Commerce, and associate professor at the University of Derby, University of Worcester, and University of Northampton Common Degree Program, held in Saudi Arabia. And ad hoc basis, Dr. Ekiz is certified trainer recognized by Technical and Vocational Training Corporation of Saudi Arabia. Worked with MEHRAT and BETA training centers on an ad hoc basis. Dr. Ekiz completed his PhD on Tourism and Hospitality Management at the School of Hotel and Tourism Management at Hong Kong Polytechnic University. He has a BSc in Tourism and Hotel Management and an MBA in Service Marketing from Eastern Mediterranean University in North Cyprus. He is a certified hospitality educator from the American Hotel and Lodging Education and Institute and qualified learning facilitators from École Hôtelière de Lausanne. He is an advanced trainer with distincts of International Air Transportation Association. He has over 20 years of teaching experience in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Cyprus, Turkey, Malaysia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and Morocco. He is the Middle East representative of Association of North American Higher Education International. Dr. Ekiz is acting as Asia Pacific coordinator, coordinating editor of journal Travel and Tourism, as well as Middle East coordinator of journal Multidisciplinary Academic Tourism. His expertise include service failure, consumer complaining behavior, tourist behavior, and culture. He has over 180 published journals, articles, book chapters, and conference papers. His papers have appeared in respected referred journals such as International Journal of Contemporary Hospitality Management, Managing Service Quality, and International Journal of Travel and Tourism Marketing, Scandinavian Journal Hospitality and Tourism, Journal of Hospitality Marketing and Management, Tourism Analysis, etc. He is an editorial board of top-tier journals such as International Journal of Contemporary Hospitality Management, Journal of Service Theory and Practice, Tourism Analysis, and several more. I would like to also mention that he is one of my teachers from the university that I have graduated, Cardiff Metropolitan University, London campus. So I'm very proud to have Professor Erdogan Ekiz to our panel to speak on his designated topic. Professor Dr. Ekiz, please.
Okay. First of all, hello everyone from Africa, from Morocco. Yusuf didn't tell me he's gonna read everything on my bio. I feel really ashamed. It looked like personal promotion. I thought you are gonna summarize it, Yusuf, please. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for this very timely, very important organization. Professor Aziz, thank you very much. Your team, everyone over there did a great job, both in marketing, communication, and technical part. I would like to build my presentation on what Professor Michael Hall already mentioned in the morning, and what recently Professor Wengel talked about over tourism. There are some positive effects. So it's good that I am presenting after them, because I will just refer and gain some time to their beautiful and very insightful presentations. If you can all hear me, I will like to share my screen with you if I am allowed.
Yes, you are heard. You are heard.
All right, thank you very much. Now, can you see the screen?
Yes, the screen is being visible.
Okay, now
You need to
I will
hold.
make it full
Yes.
screen. 1 second, I'm waiting the full screen. Ha! All right. Now, as you can see from the title, I'm going to talk about tourist behavior. My master's was about tourist behavior. My PhD, as you mentioned, from Hong Kong PolyU, is about tourist behavior in the unsatisfactory events, complaining behavior. So this topic is very close to my heart. I've been reading, writing, publishing about this topic, and this unfortunate event that we are going through, COVID, had lots on how people travel, cannot travel. And I would like to share my thoughts on the potential effects on COVID during and after this term. So I am planning to very briefly build on the previous presentations, highlight the distinction between consumer and tourist behavior. This is a very sensitive topic to me, because it took a couple of weeks to convince one of my PhD examiners that all tourist behavior, consumer behavior is tourist behavior, but not all tourist behavior is consumer behavior. There is a fine line that I will highlight that. And then, why we travel, can we travel, what was traveling before, tourism before the COVID, what has happened, and future of tourism, what can be done, and what are the factors affecting us for our travel behavior. This is the agenda. I'm hoping around 30-35 minutes. That will give plenty of time. If you have questions and comments, I welcome everyone to chip in. Now, to begin with, theorization of tourist behavior is very difficult, because industry is very complicated. It's an amalgam industry that what we do actually consume. However, as you can see here, when we talk about tourism literature, there were so many pioneers during late 60s, 70s, 80s, and so on. And you cannot talk about tourism literature, tourist behavior, without mentioning these landmarking research and people that pioneer, and not pioneer, actually created the discipline for tourism and hospitality research. To name few, the tourist gaze, host and guest, Jafar Jafari's old work, slightly more than 5 decades, we started to read their articles, their books. In fact, I have to say this, when I was in undergraduate program, I was studying Professor Michael Hall's books for my fundamental courses. So it is, for me, a great pleasure to be in the same session, same panel with him. The theories of tourism originated from sociology, anthropology, psychology, and marketing, so-called mainstream disciplines. And applicability of overall consumer models are discussed more than 2 decades ago by Gilbert. but the reason I am highlighting
انا هي
the
خدمات ليا
sorry, I can hear
كنسمع
someone.
عدو قاعد انا كنت ديجا
I'm waiting. Someone is talking in my ear. The reason I start my presentation with this is because we are talking about tourist behavior. We have to admit that almost all behavior, consumer behavior, applies on tourist context, tourism context. For instance, when we pay money, we want to get the value of our money. When we are staying in a hotel, we want to get high quality of service. We have a problem, we complain. However, the following part, TCC, was a construct that I developed during my PhD studies in Hong Kong Polytech. I argued that there are 5 points that tourist behavior is slightly different than consumer behavior. Once we establish these, I will move on how the tourist behavior is and will be. Because of the limited time, tourists, by definition, is visiting a destination for a limited time. So if there is something wrong in your hometown, you complaining, getting a fix for your problem may take some time. Tourists may not have that unfamiliarity in your home country or the place that you know with the system, you are familiar with the system, you can complain, you can get what you want. Limited communication. If you cannot speak the language, you cannot voice your complaints. Limited involvement. Sometimes you are not the one who is arranging the whole travel plans. You are going alone as a party. You may not have the say in that plan. And finally, and most importantly, you are in a positive holiday mood. The things that made you uncomfortable or give you upsetting experience in your hometown may not have the same effect while you are in holiday, because we human beings, we tend to see the full side of the glass, and you will just forgive and forget sometimes. So for these reasons, consumer behavior and tourist behavior are not the same. Now, let's move on to why we travel. Why do people travel? There are so many papers, books written about why, categorizing, dividing travelers into different types. But at the end of the day, there are so many reasons. Relaxing, when we feel tired, we like to recharge our batteries, visit our relatives, conduct business, conferences, getting medical treatment, sports activities, and so on. I don't want to read all of these, but at the end, if you win a lottery, you have money and time to travel. So there are so many reasons why people, thousands of years, travel. It can be religious reasons, it can be escaping from the routine. Whatever the reason is, usually it helps with scholars to put you into boxes like ecotourism, leisure tourism, religious tourism. These are why you travel. And the reasons why people travel and how they travel has been studied extensively. These are some, as earlier I mentioned, these are the pioneers of the literature on why people travel. Motivation is one of the basic driving force, and to be interpreted to lead the behavior of an individual. So in the context of travel motivation, Pisa et al. 1979 said that motivation is a set of attributes that cause a person to participate in a tourist activity in order to achieve his or her goals and expecting satisfaction. These are the previous list are the goals, expectations, And of course, we want to end up, whether we are in a business travel or medical travel, we want to be happy. Nobody travel to be miserable. And there are so many typologies, there are so many theories. I don't, this is not the reason of this presentation, but I just want to give you the early names. Maslow, during early 70s, travel motivation, Lundberg's wide travel research in annals of tourism research, Dan's pull and push factors. These are the main backbones of how travel and tourism literature build on. More recently, travel career ladders from peers, and Eiser's optimal arousal theory. These are the reasons why people travel, how they behave during their travel. It is very important to mention these names, but focusing on the motivation is important because motivations or motives are the key of designing offering for tourists. Motives are directly related to the subsequent satisfaction. You know, if you are in a business travel, the way you perceive that is different than if you are a leisure travel. And it helps identifying and prioritizing motivations for tourism marketers and planners to understand the decision-making process and to design, to modify and present their services, their destinations, so they can get more tourists. Because happy tourists, when they go back, they talk. And they bring more tourists. They come back again. They revisit the destination. So Compton and Maki mentioned why studying tourist motivations are important. But all in all, tourism, as you can see from Cooks et al. Recent depiction of the model, the tourism industry is a very amalgam, multifaceted industry. Lots of people in the external environment, tourism suppliers, tourism proposers, travelers are all integrated. So the reason we mentioned this is tourism is a human-to-human interaction industry. You cannot have full tourism without people's interaction. In some hotels, a decade ago, people tried to eliminate human out of the equation, but it didn't work. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. Blessing for people who are studying, who are writing, who are teaching tourism, but curse when it comes to the current pandemic that we are living. Many countries rely on tourism for the income, for the employment, and as you can see from this circle, the money spent by travelers, by tourists, multiplies as a ripple effect, as a multiplier effect around the economy in every country. So it is important to notice that because of this, there is an impact and importance of tourism. As all good things, it has the other side of the coin. There's pros and cons. Now, Professor Wengel's presentation covered most of the negative impact of over-tourism. And most of what she said can be applied in general tourism as well. What has changed after COVID is a plus, and what are the problems with over-tourism or tourism in mass industry. But to name few, the social, cultural, economic impacts, both positive and negative, can be considered. It creates demands. Tourism meets and spreads demand, boosts the country's development, for example, infrastructure. Countries, in order to receive, host, and benefit from tourism, they need to have infrastructure. If you cannot fly in your tourist to your airport, to your port, and cannot welcome them at the border, that means there's no tourism. So the governments, the countries are forced to invest in infrastructure, motivates the global standards around the world, induces more consumption because not only, let's say, $1,000 you spend in a hotel stays in that hotel, as we said earlier, multiplier effect. It grows because the suppliers provide services and goods to the hotels, and then they earn money and they spend money on their activities as well. Helps to protect culture, history, and nature. Of course, these are the flip sides, positive impacts of tourism. One can argue that yes, crime rates, pollution, environment, I am not overlooking those negative impacts. But regardless, all in all, oh, sorry, one second. All in all, tourism was, before the COVID pandemic, was on an uptrend since the last 10 years. 1 out of 9 jobs were service-based jobs. Export earnings generated by tourism close to $2 trillion according to UNWTO. And as you can see, the breakdown of these numbers in 2019 were briefly here. You can see total global contribution was more than $2 trillion generated. Almost 1.5 billion people traveled, and those were the days, as you can see. Now, what has changed? Of course, this was the global picture. Because I am living in Morocco, I just want to briefly mention in one slide how was Morocco before the COVID. 71 million tourists visited Africa in 2019, and almost 13 million people, 13 million of these visited Morocco. Compared to South Africa and even with Egypt, Morocco was #1 tourist destination in Africa and 13th most popular tourist destination in the world. Tourism accounted 11% of the country's GDP. As you can see from the figures, and beautiful culture, nature, and I didn't want to make you feel hungry. I didn't put the pictures of the food. It is an amazing place to be. Now, what has happened? Last 7 months, this pandemic, global COVID, affected the life. At the beginning, nobody thought it would be this severe, but right now more than 1 million people died, and there were 36 million confirmed cases. America, sadly, India, Brazil, Russia is high on numbers right now. These figures are recent from the World and COVID-19 websites. Sadly, I'm not a medical doctor, so I won't be able to talk about the impact of that. But what we can talk about, what it did to tourism industry. 189 countries at one point or another put in effect travel restrictions, one form or another, closing the borders or restricting the numbers and the people who can travel. 120 million tourism jobs has been lost, according to WTTC. It is predicted that the travel will be down to 80 to 90% compared to 2019. Hotel occupancies dropped 60 to 80% depending on the country, depending on the region. Almost 1 billion, billion and a half people, did not travel. They stay at their home. 910 billion to 1.2 trillion dollars of revenue has been lost. Travel, according to IATA's recent briefing, travel will not go back to pre-pandemic levels for the next several years. And sadly, out of 700 airlines, 30 of them are still operating or predicted to be in operation after pandemic. Of course, this is prediction unless the government or international bodies support the airline industry. This is catastrophic. Imagine the monopoly created by these remaining airlines and the prices going up. These are really not good for tourism in general. So governments need to do. So in the same context, the impact of COVID on Morocco, 86% of the hotels are closed. Only 500 plus hotels out of almost 4,000 are in operation. Most of them are quarantine patients, and doctors and nurses are staying. State of the emergency caused 63% decline in the numbers, and it has been predicted that almost $14 billion will be lost due to COVID only in Morocco. But according to Oliver Holmes, great thing in this world is not so much where you stand as in what direction you are moving. We cannot, accept the defeat. We cannot put our, head between our hands and say that, okay, this is drama happened. We are all doomed. All is lost. But according to UNWTO's, right now it's not so recent. It was more than a couple of months now. But they presented 3 scenarios of recovery. As you can see in this diagram, they are thinking that the worst case scenario is scenario 3. Until December, everything will go, lockdown. The other scenario is September, which still we are not there with these numbers. It has been came and passed. And July was the expected numbers were like. So they were thinking that they are predicting that international travel by 2021 will be only 39% compared to 2009. This is the worst results since 1950s. And they are predicting that the recovery will take some time, mostly in 2021. Global economic recession, the country is depending on the tourism for the main source of income, are suffering the most. Now, up to here, I didn't want to, be all dramatic, but this is the reality. Now, what comes next? At this situation, we are talking about tourist behavior, traveler behavior. Travel or not to travel depends on 2 groups of people. First, your concern, your habits, your motivations, your financial status. These combined intrinsic factors will help you or will stop you to travel. And the other group is others. As put in a basket, governments decide who can go out, who can travel, where you can travel, what you need to do during your travel. Health officials, they sanction tests, they sanction quarantine, and companies, if an airline is not operating or the hotel is closed, it affects your decision. You cannot simply say that, oh, I want to go to Hilton, but they are closed or they are operating with limited capacity. So these 2 bodies, I will talk about them later, affect who and how you travel, what you do during your travel. Current state of pandemic is definitely the factor. We all have news alerts, we all read newspapers or get messages from the government. It definitely affects. You cannot ignore, you cannot disregard the government or, the current situation of pandemic. For instance, recently the Ministry of Health in Morocco extended the quarantine in some regions and lighten up the regulations in another. So you are eventually you need to follow what the current state of pandemic is for your travel. Rules and regulations, you cannot break these rules if you care about your health and health of your loved ones and your community. You need to obey, and these rules and regulations and restrictions affect your travel behavior. You cannot. I am living in a small town called Bengarir. From there to here is around 40 minutes. And before I leave that town, 2 times police checked my travel permits. And at the entrance of Marrakesh, I've been stopped twice to check my papers. So travel restrictions, if I didn't have the right papers, I wouldn't be in the office right now. Availability of alternatives. So we will be talking what are the alternatives, but if there's no alternative for you to travel, to stay in a hotel, large hotel, then what are the alternatives? If you don't have an alternative, you will just sit in your home. Prices, because of this COVID situation, some prices are going up. Airline prices, as I mentioned, most of the low-cost carriers are not operating, and this impacts the prices. So it is another factor affecting your travel behavior and eventually your personal choices. If you don't want to risk your health, your loved ones, you will stay at home and not travel. So what should industry do? The new structural and organization needed to be done. I mean, it was an overdue. The impact of travel, information technology and digitalization was already was part of our life. What this COVID did for our online teachings, online conferences like the one we are having right now, it was always an option, but you know, we prefer not to use it. Now, even after a cure, hopefully soon, is discovered, I don't think this online participation or virtual side of the travel will disappear immediately. Industry should create settings and enforce sanitary and hygienic practices. This is for sure. I mean, I know I sound like someone stating the obvious, but it is something that industry should do to motivate people to ensure tourists the health so that they can be motivated to travel. Face masks, temperature check, alcohol, gels, signages, these are pretty standard, and most of the hotels are doing either by their own initiative or the enforcement of the government or Ministry of Health. Room services, replacing open buffet, limiting the interaction between the guests, social distancing, and to protect not only the guests from guests, but employees from guests and employees from employees. All those rules require certification and training. The government, the industry should spend more time, and people in the industry who are right now not being able to work should invest in their selves, get online courses, enroll, improve themselves, so that when the pandemic is over, they will be more eligible to take part in the industry if they, work on them. Now, what will change at the macro level? Tourism stabilization funds is needed especially for the countries who depend on preliminary the earnings from tourism, hospitality, and travel services. They need some kind of international support from Monetary Bank, from the WTO. Governments need to support industry. Someone who is living in Morocco currently, I can see that the king and the government is doing a great job in supporting the tourism and hospitality industry, which is definitely will be useful later once the things are less dramatic. Diversification of national economies. Definitely at the macro level, governments should rely on diversification of their economies. It may sound like kind of a done deal, a very easy thing to say. It will take time. It will be difficult. But recently I watched a program where the Kenyan people who cannot earn money from tourism currently are given jobs to clean up the rivers and the parks. That is, as Professor Wengel mentioned, the impact of over tourism. They are using this time to give nature a break and clean up the country, which is very good. Invest in domestic tourism. This is very important. Right now, international tourism, intercontinental tourism is less likely to happen in a heartbeat. So what Moroccan government is doing in the same city or in the same region, they divide the country into four locations. Hello? Four locations, and then promote and support in travel and tourism in the region and eventually in the country and neighboring country. This is very important. The governments should initiate certification for assurance. That means people need to see that things are changing. It's very important. Support national and international partnerships. Now, the destinations, the companies who were in competition with one another are working together or should be working together to promote a healthy and sustainable tourism development. These are at the macro level. In the micro level, you are required to take tests. In some cases, you are asked to quarantine, and in some cases, this test is being more and more efficient. Right now, in Germany, you can get the test in a couple of hours at the airport before you take your flight. You give your sample, they test, and you get a message that you are clear for boarding. At the personal level, again, healthcare rules need to be followed. This is no-brainer. We don't even need to debate that. Sadly, in some countries, it has been politicized, and because of that, the numbers are growing. I really am having difficult time in understanding why people don't protect themselves and others. But that's at the personal level you need to do. Options, travel options are closer to home these days. According to Airbnb, 80% of their recent business is in the same country and in the same region. What are small-scale lodging, motels, caravans, and camping options, apart hotels where you don't have to interact with many people is more fashionable now. People with concerns, they prefer that. There's a beautiful and historical motel type here called riads in Morocco. It's like an apart villa that is given to you with historical architecture, beautiful, beautiful places. So they are more popular these days because people would like to do holiday, but they don't want to be around so many people. So this is at the micro level. This is what is changing. The preferences of people are changing. They are more healthcare concerned. To wrap up, tourism industry was one of the first to shut down, and sadly, it will be one of the last ones to open, at least in the sense that before the pandemic number. Tourism is right now at the survival mode, as the standby. Yes, there is some things happening, but it's not before the COVID numbers. Now, I don't want to sound all negative. However, as Professor Hall and Professor Wengel mentioned, recovery and resilience is in tourism. We cannot deny so many previous crises, acts of violence impacted tourism. But tourism always bounces back because it is in our nature, it's in our DNA as human beings. We love to travel when we have the right conditions. That's the reason why we are the dominant species. We are not content with what we have in our hands. We travel, we explore, we see new things, learn, visit new places. But you know, this definitely will help us to bounce back. Localized travel is good for environment. You know, in 2018, the carbon emission 4.2% of the global carbon emission was on the air transport only. So because we are more you know, restricted our travels, it's good for environment. As mentioned earlier, we are giving a chance to nature to bounce back, to wrap up, to how can I say, go back, minimize. It's not going to be permanent, but the air pollution in most capital cities, the satellite images show dramatic change from what was and what is. So it is good for environment, and it definitely push us from the information technology point of view for at least half a decade or even a decade forward to invent technologies, to get ourselves acquainted and push ourselves to use the technologies, which is good. I mean, this cannot replace our face-to-face. I wish I am in India right now to visit your beautiful country, but for now, this is the second best thing, being there. So I would like to wrap up by a word of wisdom from the CEO of EHL Group, our partner, Mr. Michael Rochat. These are the trying times, definitely. We should think out of the box and use these opportunities to grow. And finally, it is, we will come out of these stronger, more innovative, and more resilient than ever. I full-heartedly agree with him. That's why I share his talk. And thank you very much for your patience. I hope I didn't bore you. And I look forward to hear your valuable comments and questions. Here is my email address. Please do not hesitate to write. I already shared my presentation file with Dr. Yusuf and the team. I give my consent to anyone who would like to use on a fair basis. You may have that. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Dr. Erdogan. Would you please kindly put your slide back? Yeah.
Sure. 1 second.
Minimize this. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Right. Stop sharing my screen. Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Erdogan, for your wonderful presentation, and we are once again really proud to have you. I would request Dr. Sultanul Aziz to add some remark on this valuable presentation.
Well, thank you. As always, I have personal memories of whatever countries are presenting. Particularly, I represented Bangladesh once in the Royal Academy of Science, the National Academy, and we were welcomed by the king in his clear-cut Arabic. I still remember, I heard the whole Arabic, understood fully, not always. But what I will never forget, the food they had. Of course, the
Professor,
culture.
you are most welcome. Next time you are here, you will be our guest.
Thank you. Thank you for an excellent presentation in covering all the aspects and also putting in some projections, which is connected with the global projections of some kind or the other. Sometimes I'm optimistic, sometimes pessimistic. Now I'm in the US and it's on the spike again. The whole country is spiking up and we don't know what next in this winter season. The doctor advised me and my wife to take flu shots at the very beginning. The shot for the vaccine, as I worked with vaccines, both viral and bacterial, almost globally, it's a bag of worms.
It's a bag of worms.
Yeah. So I wouldn't, if I was planning for a country, I would have double barrel plans, some of which are mentioned in your thing, presentation, and of course in your publications. Leaders like you are global leaders, so we welcome you to Bangladesh. Thank you, Yusuf.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sultanul Aziz. So now from the audience, if any of you would like to have any question on the presentation, Dr. Erdogan is here. If you have any confusion, if you have anything to know from the presentation, please ask. Yes, Sakib bin Alam. Yeah, please ask your question.
Thank you again. My question is we are talking about tourist behavior. So, how, what is the role of psychology in tourist behavior? And my question is also that is there any work which related two things, tourism and psychology, that will describe the tourist behavior of a tourist? Has there been any work yet? That's all from me.
Thank you very much. It's a good question, but very difficult to answer in a minute or so. Definitely, as I mentioned at the beginning, tourism and hospitality literature is based on the mainstream disciplines. When I say mainstream disciplines, I'm talking about psychology, sociology, and we cannot think about tourist behavior separate in a separate box, because we are part of the society, because we have beautiful minds that are worrying, being happy, concerned, all these behaviors. We are not switching our consumer brain and switching on the tourist brain. So all these things affect tourist behavior. And if you reach out to me, I can share some resource material, the names and the lists with you that I use in my PhDs and in my publications, just to give you some ideas that where the psychology and tourist behavior merge. I will be very happy to do that. But, definitely the answer to your question is yes, it has a lot, and it has been more in the last 2 decades. There are more researchers linked interdisciplinary theories to deeper, because now top-tier journals, they do not want to publish articles. Tourists stay in a hotel, are they happy? Yes, okay, publish. It doesn't work like this. The disciplines, interdisciplinary, location research, multi-setting research are more and more being accepted and expected. So it has lots of publications on this area, and I will be happy to share with you.
I will also be happy to read those articles and read those papers. I will contact you after this seminar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both Dr. Erdogan and Sakib Alam. Is there any more questions?
No?
Okay.
I use my time efficiently, so you will have more time.
Okay, so thank you very much, Professor Erdogan, for having your time with us, and it was really a pleasure. We are looking forward for further communication after this e-Symposium is passed. We will try to find some same platform to work along with my university and university. Let's see if we can work on the same interest. Thank you very much once again. It was a pleasure to have you on our virtual platform. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Okay.